Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the Chief Executive Officer of Jewish National Fund USA, Russell Robinson.
This is quieter than it is at my dinner table. Good morning to everybody here at the Jewish National Fund Global Conference. Welcome, and I know we have quite a few people eating the breakfast this morning, so they'll be coming in. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, again, security. I want to just advise people, there is the protesters out there. I'm going to explain to you something that the greatest of you, the educators out there, will not be able to educate any of them. In 1 minute or 2 minute conversations that you think you're going to have with them, you're not going to convince them of anything. But they are professionals. And in their professionalism, while you're talking to them, they're filming you. And while they're filming you, they're editing you, and you're going to be on social media within an hour, and whatever you think you said is not what you said, because that's not what will appear. So I advise you, stay away from the protesters. There is nothing they want to learn, and there's nothing that you're going to impose upon education upon them. Second, you want to take pictures of them and video pictures. I really would rather you not even focus attention, because when they see the cameras, when they see your phones, that's when they get a little louder and so on. Again, be vigilant. Again, if in this hall there is somebody who got in and they stand up and they start trying to disrupt, sit. We have security. They will be moved out. Again, you could yell Jewish National Fund, but sit. You could say, I want to raise my gift to $1 million, but sit. And let our authorities take care of them. And so let's have a great conference. And to start out our conference, let's welcome to the stage Michelle Bernstein.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Bernstein, and I am Vice President of the New York Board and Vice Chair of the Housing Development Fund. Welcome to our morning plenary. As we settle in for an amazing session together, I wanted to thank this morning's sponsor, Bernstein Private Wealth Management, no relation. Bernstein Private Wealth Management advises clients on managing complex challenges with personalized resources and expertise in wealth management. And thank you to Tyler Maloney, Managing Partner of the Denver office, for your participation at the conference and for standing with Israel. I'm from New York, but that doesn't seem to quite define entirely who I am. So let me state it for the record, very loud and very clear. I'm a proud member of the Jewish National Fund USA family, your family. This morning, our session is going to be about reimagining and rebuilding the North. Jewish National Fund USA's power and accomplishments are because of one central dynamic. We set bold visions, and then we meet them. Last night, you heard a lot about what took place for the people of southern Israel. Today, we will focus more on the North. Our vision for Go North was bringing 300,000 people to the Galilee, which is 17% of the land of Israel. Our goal remains the same, but what does the war mean for this vision? Over the last 2 months, more than 100,000 people have fled the North and relocated to safety. They've been moved out of their homes overnight, scattered from Tiberias to Eilat. As a result, our work is more challenging. Yet we were with the people of the North yesterday, we are with them today, and we will be with them tomorrow and forever. Simply put, we will reimagine Go North to meet the challenges of our time. They are our family and your family, and we know them well. We know them well because our Go North task force invested millions of dollars in Ma'alot. We built a beautiful river walk that has revitalized the town and motivated Israelis to move there. We know them well because our Upper Eastern Galil task force has been working with our Makom communities to make sure that we leave no one behind, raising money to build a new medical center, the first of its kind, in Kiryat Shimona. We know them well because we have been working with them for over 2.5 years as we've developed the Galilee Culinary Institute, the Lauder Employment Center, and the Margalit Startup City, all part of JNF-USA's Food Technology Center. We know them well because we built the Western Galilee Visitor Center and created the Small Business Association to accelerate new employment opportunities across the North. And today, you get to meet part of this family, to see how we are reimagining, rebuilding, and continuing to be the doers, the ones who make things happen for the land and people of Israel. You will also hear about coming home. Coming home to our ancestral soil, which has been part of who we are since the beginning, when Abraham was told by God to go forward to a new land. That one moment, that one act, makes us the only people on the face of the earth that have a land as part of our existence. We brought people home then, and JNF-USA continues to do so now. Today, over 120,000 people have come from North America over the last 10 years to make Aliyah, to return home, to be part of our Jewish nation, to help build and create and reimagine. You will also hear some of their stories today, and you will hear today how we have the solution. Yes, the solution for the next generation. At Jewish National Fund USA, we have never backed down from being Zionists, and we have never backed down from our Zionist education mandate. Today, you will hear how our commitment to our youth is the solution for the next 100 years and beyond. Is this a big challenge? Yes, but solving challenges is in our DNA. So let's get to hearing from those who are building solutions and finding ways to overcome even what seem like insurmountable obstacles. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michal Shiloach Galnur, who is the CEO of the JNF-USA Group, Western Galilee Now, which supports business development across Israel's north. It's work that is more critical than ever as we endure this ongoing conflict. Michal, thank you for joining us all the way from your home in Clear near Akko. We're excited to have you.
Good morning. Thank you, Michelle. Just on a personal note, it was a very hard decision to come and leave my girls behind, but you're my family as well, and I'm very happy I made the decision to come and be with you. We've heard so much about the horrific episode of October 7th, but its magnitude cannot be overstated, and it's a trauma that's still ongoing. As we try to process the horror and fear and uncertainty, we're also dealing with an economic moment unlike any other. Think of the hundreds of thousands of people called to serve and that have left their regular jobs behind. Consider what this means for the economic life, communities, cities, and the nation as a whole. There are mortgages to pay, tax bills to cover, and there are no easy answers here. 96% of the businesses in Israel are small to medium businesses. Many of them located in the Galilee and the Negev, and so many of the places in those areas cannot be reached right now because they are closed military zones, or they have been evacuated. And even if some of these businesses are lucky enough to be operating right now, there are very few, if any, customers or clients. But this is why we are here, and why Jewish National Fund USA has such an important role to play, because when the smoke clears, Israel's economy recovery and resilience will be fueled by how we support the economy right now. What does this help look like? For starters, we're offering Israeli support packages on JNF's Mitzvah Marketplace, a site we launched during COVID to keep small businesses afloat. Because of your generosity, thousands of these packages have been purchased and delivered, offering a critical economic lifeline to countless small businesses, and they are so appreciated by the people and soldiers who receive them, you cannot imagine. So thank you for that. In many cases, local businesses have transformed themselves into the IDF's kitchen, providing thousands of home-cooked meals every day for soldiers. At the same time, these businesses are supporting evacuee communities by offering workshops, classes, and support, everything from chocolate making to dancing to photography to art. It may sound strange, but offering evacuees these sorts of activities helps address the psychological toll of this crisis. In all these efforts, JNF-USA is stepping forward to cover expenses so these businesses can continue to do what they do for the IDF and their Israeli brothers and sisters. We're also running programs to connect evacuees to work opportunities in the communities, the new communities in which they find themselves. No, it's not an easy process, but the ripple effect of these efforts is huge. And on top of this, we've launched the Small Business First Aid Program to support businesses in the Galilee and the Negev. None of these efforts alone is going to solve the challenge of this moment, but collectively, all of this work is making a huge difference in the day-to-day lives of Israelis who are far from headlines, but so deeply impacted by this crisis. There are incredible human stories behind all of the work that we're doing, human stories that should make us all proud to be Israelis and Zionists alike. I want to tell you one story of Basma Hino. She's a Druze army widow from the north. She runs her restaurant Nur in the Western Galilee, and the restaurant is closed due to the war. What can a talented chef do in time of war? Basma phoned up her deceased husband's army unit and offered to feed everyone she could. She figured out it would be around 40 meals a day, but the unit asked for 400. That if you know Basma, and a few of you do, you know her answer, what her answer would be. Word about Basma's amazing food spread quickly, and she was getting requests for other units for her cooking. She needed help. She needed sponsors. She needed donations. Two friends, Paul Nyrens and Dudi Dayan, both jumped in to support her work. It should come as no surprise to anyone here that Basma, Paul, and Dudi are all proud members of Western Galilee Now, the Jewish National Fund USA small business network in the north. And it's that network that has enabled them to feed thousands of people every week. It's that network that has brought together Druze and Jewish volunteers to cook, pack, and distribute meals. Basma's story is extraordinary, but thankfully, it's not unique. One last story. In the days after October 7th, Avirama Harris, one of our tour guides in the Galilee from Kibbutz Tuval, called me and shared that her best friend Ayelet and her husband Meni, both from Kibbutz Be'eri, were missing. Avirama was going crazy waiting for any news, and she was racking her brain trying to come up with something she could do, along with the young members of her kibbutz and the adjacent community of Kibbutz Pelech. Avirama shared with me her idea, which was quite simple: to pick herbs from the fields, dry them for tea, and sell them online. She asked me, can JNF-USA help? My answer was, go. Today, I'm proud to say that you can purchase Avirama's effort, which is aptly named Revival Herbs, All of the income from the revival store goes to the youth of those local kibbutzim. You might be wondering, You might be wondering why I would end the story about Avirama's herb shop. Well, the answer is that last week, I met with Avirama and all our other tour guides who have no work right now. And Avirama shared with me that her best friend, Ayelet, and many were murdered on that horrible day, on Black Sabbath. Avirama also shared that her way to process her grief is through revival herbs. And in this horrible moment, she needed someone to tell her, we're here, we have your back, we're with you. In that conversation with Avirama, I told her that I will share here in Denver with my family the following. To all of you here, to all of you Jewish National Fund USA supporters, thank you for always having our back. Thank you. Together, we will overcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Michal, and thank you to everyone who is helping JNF-USA support the Israeli economy in this time of need. Sticking to the topic of economics, I am excited to introduce Sorel Margalit, the founder and executive chairman of JVP and Margalit Startup City. Sorel is a visionary tech leader, one of the main architects of the Israeli startup nation, which has created some of the leading companies that have emerged from Israel. Sorel is also a social leader, creating centers of excellence in periphery regions in Israel. His message has always been, if innovation can change a city, it can change a country and create a bridge to the world. I could go on, but I'll let Sorel take it from here. That was amazing, yes.
Thank you so much. It's such a privilege to be here with you, Russell, with all the good people, our partners, in every day, especially in days like today. What I wanted to speak today is not only our specific cooperation that we're doing in the Galilee, but also where I think Israel stands as this war is going forward and as we need to think about the day after. And what I want to talk about is truthfully for us to look in the mirror, even though our soldiers are still fighting, and to talk about the need for a paradigm shift, security-wise, diplomacy-wise, and economic-wise. October 7th massacre was perhaps for many of us a shock that we've only heard that happened to Jews in the diaspora. For us Israelis who serve in the army, I was in Special Forces of Golani for many years. My brother, my sister, my family members all serve. And many of us serve so that there's going to be a contract, unwritten contract between the country and the citizens, that the citizens will never be neglected on the border like they were in October 7th. The paradigm in which you can live next to a terrorist organization and make sure that they will be quiet by helping them make money, transfer money, and pray that they will not shoot rockets at you is gone. It was led by certain governments. I'm not going to blame specific people, but I'm going to say that that paradigm is over. We will never agree to live alongside a terror-run state. And it doesn't matter, wait, one back. It doesn't matter whether it's in the north or in the south. It needs to be understood that we will not accept it. And the terror-run state is not only by having them get the ammunition. I think you need to understand that over the last few years, Hamas was transferring $2.5 billion a year in order to finance 500 kilometers of terror tunnels, missiles, and the apparatus which probably only few countries in Europe have the money to operate. 400,000 people were evacuated from their home, and what we need to understand is that it is Israel, or certain leaders in Israel, that thought that transferring money to Hamas would keep them quiet. And what people don't understand, and we have a company called PLENARY, which kept on catching the transfer of money and shouting they're getting an enormous amount of money. How did ISIS begin to succeed? ISIS began to succeed when it got a hold of oil reserves and started trading oil in the black market. Terrorist organizations need money in order to operate. In 2014, Hamas was crumbling. It didn't have a penny to pay salaries to the people that they were trying to recruit, the terrorists that were trying to recruit. There was an opportunity there to try to to take somebody else, like the Palestinian Authority, and put them there instead. People in Israel at the time didn't accept that. Israel needs a paradigm shift on security, on diplomatic, and on economic level. The security paradigm shift says that we can't live there with a terrorist state, that we can't finance it. You know, in the last week alone, our companies showed the Swiss, the French, and the Italian banks, and the Bahrain banks. We sold in the last week with one of our companies 4 systems, 2 in Saudi Arabia, 1 in Bahrain, and 1 in UAE, to enable them to stop terror financing, because they felt like the money laundering that they were protecting against drug trafficking is one thing, but they need to protect against terror financing. It sounds anecdotal. Without money, terror cannot operate. And if you block the money, you block their ability to operate in a big way. And when I talk about a paradigm shift, I'm talking about a diplomatic paradigm shift as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this week, one of the greatest statesmen, sometimes controversial, in the 20th century, Henry Kissinger, halach le'olamo. Henry Kissinger understood, and people criticize him for what he did in Cambodia, and people criticize him what he did in different parts of the world. But in Yom Kippur War, if we didn't have Kissinger at the last part of the war that allowed us to negotiate with the Egyptians and the Syrians a ceasefire, we couldn't have ended the war in the way that we wanted it. Military force is important, and without that, Israel cannot exist. But without a diplomatic hand, you are fighting with one hand only. And it's about time that a smart country like Israel starts using its brain in addition to using its force. And in the region today, we are not alone. In the last few years, our companies, from the Galilee also, we had the Minister of Agriculture from the UAE She visited us in the Galilee to do a food tech project for smart protein in the UAE, in the Galilee. What I'm saying to you, in the last few years, in the UAE, in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, in Morocco, slowly in Tunisia, in Bahrain, we've been cooperating. These people are not strangers to us. And by the way, as we're doing deals in these very days, they're saying to us quietly, finish the job. Fundamentalism, Islamic fundamentalism, is as bad for them as it is bad for us. So any reconstruction of Gaza on the day after needs to work with our allies in Egypt. You're seeing how they're helping us on the day-to-day. In Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, in Jordan, in the UAE, and of course, I don't think that we've seen, and I know you guys have criticism about your presidential candidacies and all that. From an Israeli perspective, what Biden did over the last few weeks to bring a US president to support unequivocally a country like Israel at its time of need was something that we are proud of and we respect greatly. It is about time that a US president has a policy in the Middle East and doesn't run away from it whenever there's a little bit of trouble. It's about time that a president in the US understands that in the Middle East there's two camps. There's the fundamentalist camps with Iran, with a proxy military state in Lebanon, a proxy military state in Gaza, a proxy military state that's forming in Syria, in Yemen, and on the other side, there are Sunni countries. They may not be writing Jeffersonian democracy when they go to sleep, but they want to create economic development, alternative things that they want to build, and Israel is going to be in the center of what we're building for the region economically. So together with the US and Europe and NATO and the UK and a bunch of other enlightened countries and the Arab countries, we need to start thinking about the day after. You can't think about the day after only when you finish the war, because thinking about the day after could be an exit strategy from the war that gets you to the right place. I was in Lebanon, Be'orev Golani, pressing the PLO in 1982. At the end of the day, the PLO didn't get out of Lebanon because we shot them out. They got out of Lebanon because we were shooting, but the French president got them out on a boat and got them over to Tunis. So we used the diplomatic tool in addition to a military tool. And if you think about it, you have Egypt, you have the UAE, you have Bahrain, you have Saudi Arabia. These are real countries that want to see Gaza in a different way, but want to see the region in a different way. You have the US, you have the European Union, you have the UK, you have NATO. And in the middle, yes, you may not like them, you may not think that they love Israel, but you have the Palestinian Authority, maybe with a new refresh on the Palestinian Authority. For 30 years, and I was in the Security and Foreign Affairs Committee of the Parliament, we've been cooperating with them on a security level. We may not think that they're perfect, we may not think that they're wonderful, but they have been a partner that didn't support terror, but fight terror. And in some incarnation of that in Gaza, with the support of with the Arab countries, we need to put somebody else in charge. If you're not going to put somebody else in charge, no matter how many specific Hamas terrorists you're going to kill, you're not going to have another chapter. And you need to think about this now. The US is asking you to think about it. Instead of being dragged into this, why don't we lead it? And to say that it's easy, no. Our neighbor is not Canada, but we can still work forward in order to try to shape our own future. And Hezbollah, Nissan Ze'evi, the guy that's managing our hub in the Galilee, couldn't come because he's with the Kitat Konenut in Kfar Giladi. He's recruited. Dvora here is with me, my partner, who you know. So Hezbollah has a much stronger army than Hamas. They have more missiles, and they're sitting on the border. And Israel will need to deal with it. And it's very complicated to think when exactly you want to deal with it, because Biden asked us not to deal with it, because if we would have had a war with Hezbollah, we would have had to shoot the Syrians and the Iranians as well in order to have sort of an alliance of power. And that would have created a regional war. And the Americans asked us, don't take this into a regional war now. And we accepted their recommendation, even though many people in the Israeli IDF wanted to go in and to clear the Hezbollah up until the Litani River, 29 kilometers north of the border for Israel. But I want to say something. What do I mean by using diplomacy in addition to military force? You know that there's a Security UN resolution, Security Council 1701, that states that after 2006, the second Lebanon war, that the Hezbollah needs to be north of the Litani River. It means it's 29 kilometers from the borders. Did you hear Israel put this on the table of the UN Security Council? Did you hear people talking about this? Do I think that it's going to be easy just with military maneuvers to take them to the north? No. But there's a narrative to be told. The world needs to understand. Because tomorrow we're going to be dragged into a war in Lebanon. The world doesn't understand that Hezbollah is sitting on our border and is using all its might, and it's going to go or plans to go into our kibbutzim, into our villages, into our cities, where we are operating together. You, Russell, and us, we're operating there together. So it needs to be put on the table again. And then finally, economically. That I understand firsthand. I was fortunate in JVP, and I'm a Jerusalemite, I'm in Yerushalayim. We created 160 companies, and we were fortunate enough that some of the largest companies out of Israel in the last 30 years came out of Israel. And together, a few years ago, we embarked on the North together. Remember after the Depression in the US when you had Hoover as your president? Some of you don't remember. I mean, people couldn't get a job. The economy was stale. What did Franklin Delano Roosevelt did? He brought the New Deal. He brought the New Deal. He was building dams. He was building roads. He was building facilities that gave people jobs. We, after the war, need a new deal for the North and for the South in Israel in order to get the young people back to their place and have a quality of life looking forward. And remember that the victory image of Israel is not just on the battlefield. One of the first guys from Sayeret Giv'ati that died, that was killed, I was with his parents, and they were saying, you know what he really liked? Yes, he was a warrior, but he was a young guy. He was going to make movies. He was a sensitive, poetic soul. And I said to myself, this is a warrior that fought like crazy, and that's his legacy. Create movies, listen to people, bring creativity to the forefront of his life. And I said to myself, you know why we're going to win? Because our legacy is a legacy of life, not a legacy of death. And the legacy of life has to do with economic development, with jobs, with things that we'll talk about today. And the JNF, you guys have been an amazing partner to our initiative in the Galilee. And let's just look at a few things that we've been doing. Over the last few years before the war, there's a food tech industry park. There's a micro-industry site. There's a food tech incubator, Migal, which is 150 PhDs out of the kibbutzim that finally decided not just to invent the next Apple for the next kibbutz, but also invent startups for the world. The Galilee Research Institute, Tel Chai College, the National Fund, the Institute, the International Food Tech Center, and the Startup Studios. We're doing all of this together. We're doing all of this because it's not just one initiative in the Galilee. We're doing it together, and we're changing a region, the Upper Galilee. Margalit Startup City was something that we built with the help of people from JNF. We couldn't take a donation at the time because the thing that we wanted to donate, the government didn't accept. Somebody blocked us. And I was in the parliament, so I couldn't really do business. So what I did, I got out of parliament. When you get out of parliament, nobody can stop you. If you want to invest and create a building, you invest and create a building. So we bought the ugliest building in Kiryat Shmona by far. But we turned it around, and JNF, and Zussman and Greenbaum family specifically invested with us. And this may be a small project, but this project is the center of a new phase, a new vision for the Galilee, creating the Galilee, bringing agriculture and technology together to create Israel as the center for food tech and ag tech in the world. Yes, in the Galilee. And what's been going on? Nestle, Merio, Cisco, Netafim, a lot of people came and joined us. JNF and us were approaching people. We have things that are both for-profit and non-profit. And in the down-and-out city of Kiryat Shmona, which when we came in, got the title, the poorest city in the country because they had 160 million shekel deficit, I think, and you can see the building, how ugly it was on the right. You know, we started doing something that brought together the Ironim, the guys from the city, and the kibbutznikim, and the moshavnikim, and the Druze villages and the Arab villages together, but the center is Kiryat Shmona. And we have 280 startups that applied. It's a region that never had startups. It's a region that was always behind, always looking at Tel Aviv and being jealous. And today, we're not doing things that you do in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv, we do fintech, we do cyber. Here, we do food tech. Here, it's the agricultural land of Israel. We take the startup fever to something that Israel until now didn't do. And then it's the fastest growing ecosystem with 180 startups that are working there, with 27 strategic partnerships with international players, and with amazing research facilities. But we also have a community. The community is nonprofit, and this is what you guys are helping fund, and this is what we're doing. One of the biggest things is called Galilades. Dvorah will tell you more about it later. Galilades is a community of 1,200 women entrepreneurs in the broad sense of the word. So you could be a high-tech entrepreneur, or you can own an ice cream parlor. Doesn't matter. You're an entrepreneur, right? Small business, large business. And what these women are doing by getting together is creating a narrative, a community for the Galilee that brings the communities together. And now when people are evacuated, it's the address for working together on keeping some of these small businesses alive. The same thing that you have entrepreneurs community in the college of Tel Chai, the young students in the university, the arts and culture, or one of our leader of the community, you know her. She is bringing together music and arts and technology because they say that wherever you don't have live music, young people don't stay. So that's one of our next phases of the Margalit Startup City Center in the Galilee. And of course, the schools. All the schools in Kiryat Shmona and in the region study. We have 60 one-year volunteers, Shnat Shirut, a year of service. So they're the ones that are operating the plan. So they study math, they study Hebrew, they study English. In the Arabic community, they study Arabic, but they also they study food tech. So you may be in the school that is the most behind, but you're a food tech entrepreneur. You're involved in a project. And it's unbelievable how many entrepreneurs and how many times that our schools won international and national awards. And this is in a poor city that was not considered part of the high-tech thing. And then Tel Chai College, when we talk what's next. We were instrumental in creating an advocacy of a resolution that will turn Tel Chai College from a college to a university, the first university in the Galley. What does that mean? It means that they will move from 3,500 students to 20,000 students in 5 years. And if I can think of an abundance of young, dynamic people coming to the Galley, this is a great initiative that would allow us to welcome many people. And then what we're doing today is we're actually putting together another economic project. It's called the Terminal. You can see that it's already built, the first phase. It's a place which helps food tech companies manufacture their first batches of amazing products, because food tech is not theory, you gotta taste it. So when the international clients come in, they do it. We invited you to be a part of this. Once again, it's being built as the state-of-the-art facility with Meriot, the French, and the Tel Chai International College. And the one thing that we're doing next to Migal has 150 PhDs. We're creating a building for startups, because research is great, but I want to take the research to company creation. I want to see what it is that you can do from your research. They can have a company, can have jobs, can have things that will create economic development. And this is my last secret that I'll let you in on. A city, you know, they're already done with all the harchavot, expansions in the kibbutzim, so when young people come, they don't have housing to give them. You guys help with a few things, but what am I looking at? I'm looking at, why don't we create a new neighborhood in Kiryat Shmona? A multi-purpose neighborhood where you had young people, students, young professionals, technology, retail, and arts in a city like Kiryat Shmona, with new architects, with new ideas, with the participation of you guys, the kibbutznikim, everyone. Because people need to understand, you can have the greatest kibbutz. If you don't have a strong city, your kids will just go to the Tel Aviv. So we can take a city like Kiryat Shmona, which is now undervalued, put something in place around some of the themes, and it's also a good and sound economic investment, so that it doesn't have to be just on the basis of donations. It could stand on its feet for the next few years. And these are some of the things that we're inviting you to come. I just want to say last, I live in Jerusalem. My hub, near the German colony, near the old train station, those that have visited me, overlooks the old city. And people ask me about the dark hours, not just for Israel, but also for our people, the Jewish people. And I just want to remind them that in the past, some of the darkest hours brought the greatest visions that are responsible for bringing us all together here. Yeshayahu ben Amos, one of the greatest prophets that gave us so many amazing ideas, was standing where my hub in Jerusalem is, watching the old city. The city, it was a city, it wasn't called the old city, it was the city. And he was seeing the Babylonians take the men, the women, the children, with blood, with fire. And it was bad. And these days, when you were exiled as a people, you were gone. But what did he say? He brought up a vision that was spiritual, that many of us are following, about the role of the Jewish people. He said that at the end of days, the other people will see your God as their God. You don't have to be religious. It talks about morality. And they will come to Jerusalem, and they will build, and they will turn their swords into plows. And he gave us a vision that I think years after that, is bringing us together as a people. We are at a crossroad in Israel. We are at a crossroad of Jewish people. The kind of things that we are doing together in Israel today is light onto the nation. And if we do it, we will give the next chapter to the young people in Israel in a way that they've never seen before by our partnership together. Thank you.
Thank you, Arel, for all that you're doing. It's amazing to be able to see through the fog of war and into a better future. So thank you so much. It is now my pleasure to introduce our Vice President of Campaign, Nina Paul. Nina has more than 3 decades of Jewish National Fund USA activism and philanthropy under her belt. She's a pillar of her community in Cincinnati and has built countless bridges and connections to ensure that the work we cherish continues for years to come. Please welcome Nina to the stage.
It was award-winning author Karen Hess who wrote, "Sometimes a flame can be easily and utterly extinguished, and sometimes it can shrink and waver, but sometimes a flame refuses to go out. It flares up from the faintest ember to illuminate the darkness, to burn in spite of overwhelming odds." My friends, this morning, in this room, and all among our allies around the world, let us be the light. There is evil in the world. Our people have seen some of the worst evil perpetrated against human beings throughout our 4,000 years of history. And yet, we are here. Our answer to evil is to be a force for good, to be the light. Within hours of the Hamas terrorist attacks on October 7th, not only did our Jewish National Fund USA's Israel Operations Center spring into action to determine the immediate needs and help in the evacuation of families living near Gaza, but you also leapt into action. As a National Vice President of Campaign, you might expect me to talk about the millions of dollars raised through our Israel Resilience Campaign to support the needs of the tens of thousands of families evacuated from both the Western Negev and the Galilee. Indeed, our attention is focused toward the Gaza border, but we should not forget our brothers and sisters in the north of Israel who live with the constant threat of attacks by Hezbollah and have also been displaced. Even while we are uplifting thousands of displaced families and planning to help them rebuild and repair their communities, the work of JNF-USA continues across Israel. We need and we must raise millions to support our ongoing activities through our annual campaign. Our work to build a strong and vibrant Israel continues, even during the war. Our commitment to the land and people of Israel is the light that cuts through the darkest of times. My friends, we are the light. As much as we have seen the worst of humanity brought on by Hamas and its sympathizers, they have united the Jewish people and our allies like never before. Yes. Tens of thousands of people joined our Jewish National Fund USA Resilience Campaign for Israel, including 20,000 first-time supporters, and so many of you, and I thank you very much for that. Thousands have turned into our daily briefings for updates on the war effort and how JNF-USA is supporting displaced families. And our Jewish National Fund family was out in force among the nearly 300,000 people who came together peacefully in Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago for the March for Israel. It was an amazing and inspiring day. And here, this weekend, we are over 2,500 pro-Israel supporters from the United States, Canada, Israel, and beyond at this global conference for Israel. You are among those who will help Jewish National Fund USA reach 1 million voices for Israel over the next 10 years. And in times like these, we need every voice to sing in unison on behalf of the State of Israel and Jews everywhere. You are part of the 1 million. As brave Israeli soldiers root out the evil of Hamas terror organization, we too must continue to step up to defend our land and people of Israel. In one voice, we must advocate for a strong and secure Israel and for the safety of Jews here at home and on college campuses. Yes. And we must also use our philanthropic dollars to support the thousands of families displaced by this war through committing to the long-term rebuilding of physical community infrastructure decimated by Hamas, as well as rebuilding community resilience. We must make a long-term commitment to help shattered families pick up the pieces. And during their darkest days, we must be their light. Together, we can do this. Together, we will do this. This is our commitment to our brothers and sisters in Israel, and this is our commitment to Jewish people everywhere. Yes, there is darkness in the world, but we are the light. Say it with me. We are the light. Say it again. We are the light. Again, we are the light. Thank you. To build on the idea of light, I'm thrilled to introduce somebody who many of you know and saw last night, and who's an incredible advocate for the next generation of Zionist leaders. Please welcome to the stage Ron Werner.
Thank you, Nina. For those I have not met yet, my name is Ron Werner. I am the very proud president of Jewish National Fund's Alexander Muss High School in Israel. That's right. I'm also an alumnus of the school from 1982. So I have a multi-dimensional view of what the school can achieve. There are thousands of articles being written today about Jews, stories focused on young Jews who do not know who they are, who lack the knowledge about their heritage and their history, who, as the stories go, are the poor, lost souls. I read the articles and I hear the oy veys. This morning, I boldly ask you the question, what must we do today so we do not hear the oy veys tomorrow? There might be many solutions, but I'm going to tell you that sending a teenager to our Muss High School in Israel, or to Heller High, a semester abroad experience similar to Muss run by the Reform Movement, or to Try Israel, another program run by the conservative movement, that utilize experiential learning in Israel is the solution for tomorrow that will cure the oy veys. And that is why Jewish National Fund USA is the only organization in the history of Jewish organizations to allocate $25 million for a program we call Dream Israel. Dream Israel gives grants of $7,500 to any teenager who wants to go on any of these programs. Yes, we are investing in our competition because we don't believe in competition. We believe that all ships must rise for the betterment of the Jewish community today and tomorrow. And when I say tomorrow, I mean tomorrow, but what I really mean is 100 years from tomorrow. The key to the future of American Jewry is to build a better connection between young Jews and their Zionist core. We must do more to foster a Zionist connection during the influential teenage years to the land and the people of Israel. I'm here to tell you that to defeat the darkness, to bring light into our future, we must invest in our teenagers. I'm telling you to invest in the Mus High School in Israel because it is a proven solution. We heard from Atara, a student at the University of Michigan, and while she and some others are shining beacons of hope, it's easy to see we have a lot of work to do on campus. And it's not because our students have failed us. Quite to the contrary. It's because we have failed our students, because we did not invest enough during their teenage years. We did not invest enough in connecting our young people to the land and the people of Israel, to Zionism, through programs of 5 weeks or more in Israel. Right now, we're bringing 1,600 American high school students every year to Mus. But if we want to preempt those oy veys, that's not enough. We must aim to bring 5,000 students a year, and we must grow from there. Who are these proverbial students that I speak about? 52% of our Mus students today come from non-Jewish day schools. They come from public high schools. Jewish National Fund's Mus is an accredited American high school with the ability to recruit in public schools. 70% of our students, 70% of their parents have never been to Israel. However, 50% of those parents, half of their parents, will take a trip to Israel, their first trip, within 2 years of their student attending our program. And the relationship between Israel and the Jewish people sprouts from there. My friends, we are Zionists, and we believe in Zionism, and it's our central work. Zionism is a good word. That is why Jewish National Fund USA acquired Mus High School 10 years ago. Not because running a high school is easy or an experience. Trust me, it is neither. We did it because it's the right thing to do to make a difference for tomorrow and 100 years from tomorrow. If you want to fight assimilation, send more teenagers to Mus High School in Israel. If you want to give children an education that allows them to effectively advocate for Israel and Zionism, Jewish values, tradition, and history, send more teenagers to Mus High School in Israel. If you want strong Jewish leaders down the road, send more teenagers to Mus High School in Israel. So you know, today, there are approximately 250,000 Jewish teenagers between the 9th and 12th grade in America. We can sit around and say, oy vey, about what we didn't do yesterday, or we can all make a commitment today, and we can reimagine what happens next. We can use what we call mus magic as the cure for the Jewish future. We can make a commitment to bring 5,000 of these young people to our high school each year. Imagine 5,000 students going to Jewish National Fund's Mus High School for a semester abroad, and 1,000 to Heller High, and another 1,000 to Try Israel. I'm telling you, our future will never look stronger. So the question isn't, do we at Jewish National Fund USA have the solution? The question is, do we have you with us as part of the Mus movement? I say, no more oy veys. Let's say, oh yes, join the Mus movement. We will send thousands and thousands to Israel. We will build the Jewish future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. You are a powerhouse for the future of our people. Next, I'm excited to introduce a true visionary in Israel. Gidi Grinstein is nothing other than a social entrepreneur. Born in Israel and raised in the Ivory Coast in Cameroon, Gidi is a founding member of the Reut Group, formerly known as the Reut Institute, one of Israel's leading nonpartisan research and strategy groups. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Gidi led Israel's negotiating team with the PLO, where his work culminated at the Camp David Summit in the summer of 2000. He's also the author of the book, Flexigidity, The Secret of Jewish Adaptability and the Challenge and Opportunity Facing Israel, which should give you a pretty good idea about why he's here today. Please welcome Gidi to the stage.
Last night, am I on? Yes. Last night, you briefly heard about Ophir Lipstein. Ophir was the mayor of Sha'ar HaNegev Regional Council. This morning, I want to share with you and with his wife, Vered, who may be in this audience, and his family members, perhaps you're here, and if not, still, a short, inspiring story. A short, inspiring story about Ophir. In January, Ophir invited me for a visit. We drove in his car on the bumpy road along the border with Gaza. Out of the car, on top of one observation point, Ophir gestured toward Israel and said, 95% paradise. You heard that sentence yesterday from Michal. I trust that it must have been a regional mantra. Ophir and I came out that day to envision peace-building humanitarian projects that will help the residents of Gaza. Looking at Bet Hanun, Ophir added, 50,000 Hamasniks are controlling 2 million Gazans. Who would have imagined what these Hamasniks had in store for us? On October 7, Hamas terrorists attacked Ophir's kibbutz, Kfar Aza. He grabbed his gun, he went out to protect his community. He fell dead by his house. His son Nitzan was murdered also that day. Vered, other members of the Lipstein family, I feel blessed by the legacy of Ophir. His funeral, the eulogies by President Herzog, by his colleagues, by the legendary Miriam Peretz. Is she here? Miriam. Yes, to Miriam Peretz. And most importantly, by your sons were heart-wrenching, but also inspiring. I know that Ophir and Nitzan's memory will be a blessing for many. Ophir was very proud of his turf. Sapir College, schools, parks, forests, resilience centers, high-tech center, a pool for people with disabilities. You know all these places because wherever we stopped, there was a sign with a blue and green box. Ophir and I snapped this picture and sent it to Russell. Hope you remember that, Russell. My name is Gidi Greenstein, and 9 years ago, my team and I founded a venture called TOM, Tikkun Olam Makers. I stand before you today as one proud grantee and partner of JNF-USA. To explain our vision and partnership, I introduce you to Noam. Noam is a wounded veteran who lost his arm. Israel's Ministry of Defense gave him a prosthesis that costs $15,000. With it, Noam can do a lot, but he wants to do even more. He wants to cook and to paint. So a team of students created a second prosthesis for Noam that would cost $150. They signed off their intellectual property to the public domain and deposited their creation on our website. A few months later, our TOM community in Singapore met Boone in the green shirt. With no arms, he does have a simple wish. Think about it. He wants to go to the bathroom independently. So TOM Singapore improved on Noam's creation and solved Boone's challenge. Later came Yael. She's from Bnei Brak. Without an arm, she still wants to play the violin. Another team of students made her dream possible. And after Yael came Moshe, who wanted to play the guitar, and Eliran, who wanted to play basketball with his son, and Esther, who wanted to use her tablet. And today, the TOM prosthesis is parametric, customizable to any stump, and weighs just 1 pound. Most importantly, thank you. Most importantly, it can be manufactured anywhere with a simple 3D printer for the cost of a designer's jeans. But our vision was bigger than creating a few solutions to a few problems. We envisioned a platform that houses thousands of solutions, helping millions in Israel and around the world. We wanted the residents of Western Negev to have the same access as those living in New York City, in Tel Aviv, or here in Denver. And today, we have 800 solutions in different phases of development on our website. Ours is one of the largest libraries of open source and free solutions for people with disabilities. We have operated in 150 countries and 150 locations in 35 countries, and the numbers keep growing. One of my favorite products is this wheelchair for toddlers. It is so intuitive that kids who never walked can immediately roam around the room by the power of their hands. It costs $120. And last week, this picture, our team visited a daycare for children with special needs in the Bedouin community of Rahat. We brought them 3 wheelchairs. As we walked out, the teacher asked for 3 more. Friends, this happened thanks to you. 2 years ago, JNF-USA supported our deployment in the Negev. We recruited Nitzan Shaulov from Ben Gurion University to lead our work. He collaborated with Soroka, Adi Negev, Sami Shamoun and Sapir College, Lakia Middle School, Eretz Ir, the Lauder Center, Tzad Kadima, Beta Galgalim, and other organizations. Many of them are your affiliates, grantees, and partners. His work was so impressive that he was invited to meet Secretary Blinken. We are proud of Nitzan, and you should be proud of the work of JNF-USA. Beyond social impact, Tom's goal is also to strengthen the good standing of Israel and Jewish communities around the world. Our top priority was to do so on campuses by building relationships with those who can become our allies. In August, 75 Tom Fellows from 62 universities in 10 countries, including the US, Israel, Bahrain, the UAE, and Morocco, came together in Atlanta, Georgia, for 3 days of orientation. This is their picture. If you look closely, it's not your usual suspects in an Israeli Jewish international campus program in America today. When Russell and I met to forge our partnership, we discussed the confluence of our visions. Yours is to leapfrog the Negev and the Galil and to help people with disabilities. Ours is for the Jewish people to improve the lives of millions in a distinctly Jewish and Israeli manner. Our connection point was to turn the Negev into a model for the global Tom movement. You see, for millennia, the Jewish contribution to humanity has been qualitative through our laws, institutions, and ideas. But in the past decades, we have been able to also make a quantitative contribution by helping hundreds of millions of people. Our secret sauce, as you heard from Erel, combines Israel as a playground for innovation, the power of technology, the worldwide web of Jewish communities, and the passion for Tikkun Olam that is infused among us. In that global humanitarian spirit, on October 6, I was still planning to participate in the annual meeting of the World Bank in Marrakesh. And the agenda was to help people in Africa. But by October 8, our lives and plans were reoriented, each to do what we can to address the basic needs of Israelis who were displaced and wounded. Last night, you heard from Talia about these monumental challenges. In our specific case, 5 weeks ago, we were asked to provide one weighted blanket to treat trauma. Today, we're striving to deliver 1,000 blankets to survivors, to displaced families, to children and adults, and even to those who are coming back from the captivity in Gaza. On October 6, we were discussing manufacturing each prosthesis upon demand. Today, we plan to 3D print dozens of units each day. And as you know, our story is just a tiny fragment of the inspiringly immense mobilization of Israel's civil society. Indeed, the war brought us back to the fundamentals of Jewish societal responsibility. While technical and technological innovations of the startup nation are critically important, the Jewish people has led in humanity because of our social and communal innovations. And while it is great to create solutions for rich societies and people, the Jewish people has stood out because of our care for the vulnerable. We are brought together by immense challenges: grieving, healing, rebuilding, homecoming, and bringing back the kidnapped, bringing them back home. I am confident that JNF-USA and all of you here will play a critical role in our comeback. But as daunting as these challenges are, we must acknowledge that things could have been far worse. When Hamas pushed its allies to gang up against Israel, it was the United States of America, as Erel said, and President Biden who warned them, don't. So in closing, I want us to think about one additional challenge, which is how to express gratitude. Last week, Americans celebrated Thanksgiving, and Jews read in Parashat Vayetze about Yehuda, whose name comes from Todah. We are very thoughtful about how we express gratitude. In July 2026, 3 years from now, the United States of America will celebrate 250 years of independence. Imagine that moment. Toward that date, every minority in America will highlight its legacy. And my question is, what will be our story? Friends, what is happening in Israel, in the depth of our crisis, can be modeled and replicated to help millions of Americans. We can connect Kiryat Malachi with Los Angeles and Sderot with San Diego. And that connection can materialize by JNF-USA and by all of you. That connection can be our gratitude to America. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giddy. May your work continue to have the kind of impact that we all believe it can. Last but very much not least, we've got a special presentation from our friends at Nefesh B'Nefesh. We're all grateful for their work to make Aliyah a reality. And while Israel emerges from one of its darkest moments in history, our friends at Nefesh can provide an important perspective. Let's take a look.
My intention was to share the transformative impact of Nefesh B'Nefesh, how we're building 187 communities throughout Israel, and to share amazing success stories of Olim. But October 7th changed all that. It changed all that, and the war that we were thrust into, my mind, your mind's in a different place. This is a war for our survival. What helps us, I think, as a Jewish people, is to throw ourselves into action. It's really in our DNA. So let me tell you what we at Nefesh B'Nefesh are trying to do in this war to help our Olim. Israel has a serious doctor shortage, and we have an incredible initiative to bring doctors from across the world to address this serious concern. So we teamed up with the Ministry of Health and all other medical organizations, and we have become the nexus for an initiative to bring doctor volunteers per specialty from around the world. Over the years, we've brought 11,000 pioneering Olim to Israel's south and north, and many of these Olim have been evacuated. So we began a fund to help give out emergency grants to these individuals directly affected by the war. In our amazing campus, we've opened the space for weddings. Free of charge, just bring a caterer and the space is yours. We've done over 7 weddings since we started just a few weeks ago. Weddings of lone soldiers, weddings of a family from Sderot, where people's lives have been upended. Seeing these soldiers coming to get married here on the rooftop in Jerusalem, knowing they're going back to war, and giving them that joy is incredible. While there's a war in the front lines, there's also a war to keep the home front resilient and to keep spirits up. The outpouring of love literally keeps us buoyant, keeps our spirits up, keeps us understanding that we're all in this together. On October 7th, 3 of my children were called up to the IDF. 2 of them are deep in Gaza. That's literally all I think about every day, every night. Are they cold? Are they afraid? Where are they? How is it in that hornet's nest? And then I just try to go to positive places. Conditions are hard, but the mission is unquestioned. It is amazing to see the determination in their eyes. They're fighting so that we can try to sleep at night.
Hi, my name is Josh Brook. I am 32 years old and I live in Jerusalem. I am currently in the 439 Artillery Brigade Reserve Unit. I made Aliyah to Israel in 2011 as I came as a lone soldier to volunteer in the IDF. It was only after I spent a year in Israel on my gap year that I really realized that it meant something more to me. There was this feeling that I couldn't really describe, being in South Africa, living in Israel. There was something that really felt a little bit different, and I felt this connection. The kibbutz that I lived on when I first made Aliyah is called Kibbutz Saad, and it's actually 2 or 3 kilometers away from where I am now. So I really am protecting the first place in Israel that I ever called home.
My service means everything to me. I can give back to my country. I love my people here.
In the entire history of our people, we've gone through wars, we will get through wars, and we're always together. And as long as we stay together, we will get through it no matter what.
There's nowhere else for us to go. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
I decided to draft, and it's the best decision I ever made.
I'm Maddie, I'm from California. I've always dreamed about making Aliyah, and I'm so happy to serve my country in this difficult time.
Every Jew should contribute to Israel in whatever way that they can. This is the way that I choose. I'd like to contribute through being a combat soldier in the IDF.
Every day I wake up and I'm so thankful to be serving in such a meaningful position, especially during these difficult times. The country's in good hands. Am Yisrael Chai.
I think about the 5,000 lone soldiers who paused their lives to confront this evil, who joined their Israeli brothers and sisters to defend Israel on the front lines. 5,000 moms like me across the globe are anxious and worried and waiting for a WhatsApp and have no idea what's going on with their sons and daughters. I want to share with you a little bit about Operation Hug, our newest initiative. Together with Jewish National Fund, we want to help build the spirit and resilience of our lone soldiers. It's really tough out there, and it's lonely out there knowing your family is so far away. And for the moms and the dads 5,000 miles away to be so far from their kids is excruciatingly difficult. By helping to bring parents of lone combat soldiers on the front lines to be in Israel with no guarantee that they're going to see their child, but knowing that they're an hour and a half away from them, this builds the spirit. We know that this builds the determination, and we know that this contributes to the emotional, psychological, and mental health of these lone soldiers and their parents. We have parents from 64 countries, and we have been inundated with requests for these parents to be close to their children.
I'm the mother of a lone soldier. I got to meet him where he was, down south for an hour a couple days ago. And just, that first hug it just meant everything to me.
My daughter's a lone soldier. She's a sharpshooter. It's an honor to be able to come here. It doesn't make it harder for me that I might not see her, because I know that bringing supplies for soldiers, being able to deliver it, we're all doing our part.
I came here with Operation Hug, and I, thanks to Nefesh B'Nefesh, had an opportunity to give Ro'i a hug yesterday morning. That meant the world to me, and I can breathe.
I have 2 kids in the army. It's been absolutely amazing to be here in Israel with them.
It's just amazing, the best feeling ever. Hugging him, being with him. It was so beautiful to see my son again, to hug him. This program helped me to understand how important it is to be here and support all our soldiers. And we don't stop. We are with you, and thank you for supporting us and taking care of us.
We are living through history right now, a historical time that's going to be studied for generations to come. This is our opportunity. This is our calling to stand up and be part of supporting Israel and the Jewish people in our fight of light against dark. And our job with Operation Hug is to build Israel's resilience, to create unity and solidarity, to build up our soldiers on the front lines and build up their families. So together we can do that. We can really create unbelievable impact. So I invite you to join us in giving a hug to our lone soldiers and their families.
Our country, our people are experiencing tremendous suffering, pain, anguish, anger, and shock. And at the same time, we're witnessing unprecedented unity, love, support that showcases the best of our nation. Jewish National Fund has embraced Operation Hug in the warmest way, not only by investing in the resolve and spirit of the heroic combat lone soldiers, but in the unsung heroes, their parents. As Nefesh B'Nefesh means soul-to-soul, Operation Hug provides soul nourishment to those who put their lives on the line for Israel and for the Jewish people. Thank you so much. May God give us peace and calm for our homeland, for our people, and we all be able to celebrate better times together.
תמיד עם החיוך הכי מושלם, כמו בתמונות, בזיכרונות. לכל מקום שלא תלך, תהיה שלי מה, תמיד תהיה לי מלך העולם.
Boker Tov. Good morning. My name is Molly Livingstone. And when I was 21, I did two very significant things in my life. I ordered an alcoholic beverage legally, and I moved to Israel thanks to Nefesh B'Nefesh. Yeah. Unfortunately, these two things cancel each other out as children start drinking at the Kiddush table during Shabbat, and the legal age in Israel is 18. The move was still a big deal. Like any 21-year-old, I was making a hasty decision, not fully thinking it through. And yet, I was a planner. I had big dreams, the American dream. I had big college loans, the American college loans. I wouldn't just leave college and head to the armpit of the world. That's how I refer to my home in the Middle East. And by the end of the speech, you'll find my terminology acceptable because you'll know I mean well, so don't leave. I didn't know any Hebrew except for the few words I learned at camp when the Israeli scouts would do some shtick. Oh, mom has a fork in her leg. Ma's leg, fork. Ma's leg, fork. And while fork was useful for some, it wouldn't help me with the journey to a foreign land, culture shock, and potential regret that I may have by leaving that big American dream. But I still had those big American college loans. I was at a fork in the road, a Ma's leg. I'd gone to Israel on a free birthright trip. I did the bike and hike version, except it was winter and rainy, so it was more the version of weird street malls and lots of bus rides up and down, taking us from one end of the country to the other. Yet somehow, the plans that I had planned since age 12, when you have dreams, you start early, seemed to disappear as I made room to live a life in my homeland. I need you to know that I was brought up in LA, Jew-ish. I did Rosh Hashanah services at Cedars-Sinai Hospital because my dad could get free parking at the mall and kiss Steven Spielberg's face on accident instead of the Torah he was holding. I was one of many Jews in my public school. I had a Hanukkah bush, and I also thought Santa existed because I got lice from him at age 7 during a photo shoot in the mall when I asked him for a skateboard that somehow ended up my brother's present instead of mine. My connection to Judaism was camp. Remember, this is where I learned my 3 words of Hebrew, but it's also where I found my neshama, my soul, another word I learned. For anyone that is a camper in this room, you know exactly what I'm talking about. One day of camp can feel like a week, and in some cases, a month. You make lifelong friends, have lifelong experiences. I was never homesick, but I was always camp sick. I counted down the days between summer camp and school. Camp JCA Shalom was my safe place, my joy, my first kiss, my best friends, and would ultimately give me the most tragic and beautiful moment of my life. My camp friends and my camp counselors were my pen pals. For the Gen Zers, that's when you write on a piece of paper with a pen and then you mail it in snail mail. I kept in touch with them because they kept me in touch with who I wanted to be. I was Jewish, but at camp, I was a Jew, reciting the meal prayers, doing the two-step Israeli dance, surrounded by my tribe. And when I was old enough, it was finally my turn to become a counselor and impact campers' lives. I wanted to empower young girls to do anything from mud gaga to dancing in the fields like no one was watching when everyone was watching. My camp counselors were now my bosses, my unit heads. And as much as they told me what to do, they still gave me the support I had as a camper. And one of them even gave me a bat mitzvah at 18. Yep, I wasn't just Jewish, but a stubborn kid with principles that didn't want to do a big party if I didn't believe in God. But when my former counselor, now boss, awesome lady, just back from studies in Israel, wanted to give me a simple bat mitzvah during Shabbat services, I was all in. When Marla studied with me, I could see Jerusalem stone in her eyes. I didn't even know what Jerusalem stone was, but somehow the image of white bricks at sunset shined through her eyes as she spoke about Israel and the Jewish people. For the first time, I understood Israel as more than just a war-torn country, but as a sacred place for our past, our present, and the future of the Jewish people, as a pillar for the future of all nations, societies, communities, and global citizens. So I did my aliyah to the Torah. Marla gave me this talit. And for the first time, don't need that, I wanted to go to Israel. I wanted to see what she saw. She was studying at Hebrew University and Pardes, and I was in university, and I counted down the days until I was back at camp. I was gonna go on birthright, but I was taking a lot of classes and going to a lot of parties. There were a lot of bus bombings in Israel as the second intifada took place. So I went back to camp and planned to see her and discuss the potential trip in the future when things would be calmer. I never saw Marla again. She was killed in the 2002 Hebrew University bombing on the day she was scheduled to fly back to camp. She lost her life, and I lost my will to live. They took the kindest person I have ever met. They took my camp counselor, my friend, my understanding of justice, the world, people, good and evil. They blew it up when they blew her up. I have never had closure on my friend's death. Never. I never will. I went on birthright to keep my commitment to Marla. I moved to Israel in honor of Marla. I had a company named after Marla's favorite book, The Giving Tree. I spoke and I speak about her during the Hebrew University's Board of Governors. I named one of my daughters after her Hebrew name, Miriam. I see Marla in the strangers who are kind. I went to a funeral for Rose just a few weeks ago because she reminded me of Marla, another angel taken from this world too young. Rose moved to Israel, a decision she had made at 5 years old, and was a border police officer. She was killed in Jerusalem, where I lived. So you see, there is never closure, because Marla still exists and dies every day for me. She reminds me of the good I want to see in people and the good that I demand of myself. Now, unlike Rose, who was committed to Zionism from an early age, I didn't even know what Zionism was, even after I moved to Israel. I moved to the country because I felt what Marla felt 20 years ago, and what Rose felt, born after Marla died. It is falling in love. I fell in love with the country. It's indescribable and it makes no sense, because that is what falling in love is. The person is not the smartest, the funniest, or the beautiful, but for you, they're all of those things. This is Israel for me. I felt this intoxicating feeling soared through me with every bus ride, conversation, grassy field, and what should have been a desert. It was as though there was a hole in my heart, and I knew it. And the only way to fill that hole was Israel. It was an Israel-shaped hole in my heart. That was it. I was determined to fill the hole. I had to come back. I would be relatively smart about the decision and get an internship, do my last semester of college abroad. I wasn't giving up my future, I was gaining one. It was impulsive. I had 2 suitcases, one filled with CDs I would never ever play again, one filled with winter clothes that I would never ever wear again. And so I made Aliyah. I lived in an absorption center where no one told me how to use the hot water, so I took cold showers. I ate pita and hummus, except I was American, so I called it hummus, which sounds like Hamas. Not a good idea. I rode the bus, scared. It was my last trip. And when I survived, I realized I got off the bus at the right stop. I had arrived. I couldn't have a conversation, couldn't open a bank account, and I definitely could not understand why the National Health Insurance would have a strike until 10 a.m. in the morning, which seems like sleeping in. More than a protest anyways. And yet, I kept riding the bus. The journey had started, and 10 years later, I would finally understand that I was not only Jewish, but a Zionist. I understand that I had to let go of the American dream. And now I lived in my Israeli reality. And it was better. It wasn't a white picket fence, and there were way more cats and falafel places with mirrors so you could watch yourself eating that falafel. But it was mine and yours, and the people of my past, and my children in the present, and the future of my nation. I manifested this. I wanted to change the world. I wanted to be the change in the world. I saw it in Marla's eyes. I see it in yours. It's a mixture of hope, determination, and belief in what we can be for all of us. My country is at war. My heart is broken. My children are traumatized. And we keep going. We don't have closure. We are open, both hands wide, embracing each other because we refuse to let go. As the war wages on, it takes a toll on all of us. But it reminds us how united we are in a battle for justice, for good, for love. These are the pillars of the Jewish people. And I know that Israel isn't perfect, and I am in love with her and her flaws. I want to make her better because she makes me better. I live for her because she gives me life. And like any good couples therapist will tell you, relationships are hard work, but they're worth fighting for because when they work, anything is possible. I am here today because I made a decision to live in Israel. And you know what? I would make that decision again today. My husband was called up into action on October 7th, and he wore his uniform like a child ready for school, sleeping in his clothes the night before. His pride in defending his country and the Jewish people for justice and our future reminds me of the reason why I first moved there. To be a part of this, to raise my children, to know their roots, and to plant their seeds. In fact, they're here with me on this trip. What? I'm a Jewish mother. I worry. I am not leaving them right now. It was difficult enough that my son had his bar mitzvah without his father a week into the war. You think he's going to let me come here without him? No. That's not happening. While their father may be on the front lines of war, I decided to stand in front of all of you to make my difference. This was my reason for moving to Israel, and it's my reason for being here with you right now. Last week, while I worked on this speech, I read about Staff Sergeant Shachel Friedman, 21 years old, a member of the Paratroopers Brigade, 101st Battalion, who was killed fighting Hamas terrorists in Gaza on November 19th. Freeman's unit was one of the first to respond to the initial Hamas assault on October 7th. He left behind an ethical will, which had been widely reported and distributed in the Hebrew press and on Israeli social media, and Nefesh B'Nefesh translated his words, and now I'm going to read them to you. Be good people. Smile. Strive to make every person you meet smile too. Be open to criticism and always try to improve yourself. Know that the greatest qualities a person can have is the ability to make another person happy. Open your ears to the needs of others and open your eyes to their plan and their pain. Try to smile as much as possible, even when it's hard. Pay attention to the small people who fall at the corners of your eyes. Appreciate the little things the world has to offer, especially nature and music. And most importantly, be good people in your own way. Don't let society dictate to you what makes you good people. Just try as hard as you can. And even when you fail, know that's the road of success. Love yourselves, love the world. When you radiate happiness, a circle of joy will slowly form that will create a better world. In order to pay tribute to those that have given their lives so that we could be here for thousands of years, and for the last 2 months, I want us to take action. Now, we're not going to write an ethical will because we're alive. But what I think of we should write is an ethical investment. We have all had that need to be good and to do good. But what does it mean? And where does it go? Here and now, we are going to make a declaration of good, and it becomes our foundation for the rebuilding of Israel, for you, for me, for us, and for the world. So I invite you to write your statements. I'd love it if you take a picture. You can add your name, or you can keep it anonymous. Find me over the course of the weekend, or go to the Nefesh B'Nefesh booth at the expo, and I'm going to take all of your statements back, all of your ethical investments, and I'm going to put them in every crack of the Western Wall, the Kotel. I'm going to fill it with your hopes and your promises and your commitment to our future. This is the Israel that we build together. The holes we fill with love, with good, and change. This is how we go on. We're not at the end. We're at the beginning. But I'm also actually at the end of my speech. I'm leaving this time for you to think about your investment. See, I'm not even going to ask you for money. But I am requesting that you take this opportunity to give with all your heart, so the ones with holes can feel it. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. That was incredible. Before we break, or before we go to the next session, I do want to turn the mic over to our indomitable CEO, Russell, for a quick update on security.
Thank you, Michelle. So a couple of things. There is a parade of anti-Jewish parade going on that is 2 blocks away. So I ask you again, stay within the security perimeter. If you're not going to walk around, I ask you to please take off your name badges. Just so you know, we were notified by the FBI that there's some of the young people that were walking around with them. So it's for your security. Don't wear them. It's better. It's not about Jewish pride at this point. It's just people that are out there. So stay within the security perimeter. Look out. Take off your name badges if you're going to go out from there. Second, last here is you see people wearing these tags, which is bring them back home now, about our hostages. The Karen Kayemet and others have made it available. They'll be at Shabbat tonight, sitting at Shabbat, or you could find one of our KKL friends here and get one and wear it yourself. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Russell, and thank you to all of our speakers for your insights and energy. We're grateful for you to be here sharing with us, and even more grateful for the work that you're doing. Please give another round of applause to all of our speakers. Please see your schedule and move on to your next session. Thank you all for being here.